Hello, welcome to my happy place. Today we are going to take a look at Spinifex 4. Our Spinifex 4, like our other templates, comes in a set of 5, 3.5, 5.5, 7.5, 9.5, and 11.5. And the picture on the page shows an 8-point rotation along with each one of the templates. Also shows that I happen to be using a low shank. If we open the instructions up, we're going to note that it is available in 7 sizes. The 11.5, 9.5, 7.5, 5.5, and 3.5 come in this 5-piece set. But there's also a mini Spinifex, a 2.5 and a 1.5. And that comes in one of the mini Spinifex packages. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at 8 rotations and we're going to look at 16 rotations. We're not going to do anything fancy today. We're just going to make sure we understand how the template works. And if you look at the back of the instructions, you'll see some alternative designs and a short bio of Leonie West, who is the designer and inventor of Westalee Design Templates and Rulers, now manufactured by So Steady out in Eugene, Oregon. Again, like I have done on all the other blocks that I've shown you, I have an 11-inch square, and I am using a 7.5-inch template. I've already tested my foot height and my tension. Everything seems to be just fine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to pull my bobbin thread up in the center of the design. I like, when I am working on 16 or more points, even sometimes 8 points, depending on the project, to number my reference lines. What that does is it helps me if I'm spinning my templates around or doing them in some particular order. I'm using all of these in the same orientation, so I have not taken the time to number them. First thing we want to do is we want to line up our Spinifex on the center line, front and back, that we are using to make our first rotation. Now, this doesn't matter if you go up the right side or up the left side and come back down the opposite side. That, I guess, is the only important thing. I would like to mention, however, there is a very gentle curve to this design, and whenever I'm doing designs with curves, I like to shorten up that stitch length just a little bit. Our machines only stitch in a straight line, so by shortening up that stitch length, what we're able to do is we're able to make a smoother curve. And I know that I'm repeating myself from the other Spinifex tutorials, but it bears repeating. And if you only have one Spinifex, this may be the only one you're watching, so you're getting this information one time only. I'm not going to cut my threads. I am going to go to the opposite side of the one I just stitched. Again, the reason being is that we want to draw in the fabric, which is what happens when we stitch. We want to draw it in from opposite sides. By doing that, it draws everything in more evenly and just gives a more even look. Okay, I have stitched away from my center. What I am going to do is, one, I'm not going to take my hand off of this template. And 2, I'm going to come in and I'm going to trim that thread in the center. Okay, why can I do that when most of the time I need to bury it? The reason that I can do that is because I'm going to be stitching over that center many times. and that will lock that thread in. It will not come undone. It's going to be definitely locked in well. Take your time. Remember, you do not want to push the template against the foot or the foot against the template. This should be a very smooth, very relaxing process. If you're fighting it, then you need to stop for a minute, take a breath, just shake out your shoulders and your hands and arms. Lay your hands softly on the template. All our hands are doing here is keeping that template from twisting. What is moving our fabric? Our hands that are not on the template is what's moving our fabric. If you're a brand new beginner, do not worry about your stitch length at this time. It will improve with practice. So unless you've been doing a lot of free motion stitching, like I did a lot of free motion stitching before I started using the templates and the rulers. And I think that the free motion stitching did help me, but it is a whole new process. Give yourself a little bit of grace and a little bit of time to learn it before you start getting upset with yourself. You know, we tend as quilters, as mothers, as women, as men even. I know there's a lot of men that quilt. My husband is one of them. We tend to be really hard on ourselves when we have a project, especially when we show it to people. We point out our mistakes. Well, we shouldn't be doing that. Chances are about 99 to 1%, first off, that they're going to even notice the mistake. And I have a 30-30 rule. If you're standing 30 feet away and you're going 30 miles an hour and you can't see the mistake, it's not a mistake. Here's our 4 rotations. Nice and simple. I can see that done in a block, especially with a real busy fabric. It's enough to hold this quilting together, but it's not overbearing. So as I was saying, give yourself grace. Don't point out your mistakes to people, because chances are, again, there we go, they're not going to notice it. They're going to say, oh, that is a beautiful quilt. And the hardest lesson I had to learn, just say thank you and leave it at that. Give yourself some grace with this process. We didn't learn to write our names beautifully the first time we started writing them. We had to practice them, practice our penmanship. And it's the same with quilting. We need to practice. And how do you get good at things? Just like everything else, with practice. So here we've got 6 rotations. I'm working on the 6th one. And you'll notice I don't stitch overly fast. I like to just take my time and enjoy the journey. I know most of my students get a little tired of hearing me ask them if they're enjoying their journey. But that's what it's all about. We do this because it's a labor of love, not a chore. If it's a chore, then you need to find a new hobby. Although I hope you enjoy this and you don't find a new hobby, but you keep on keeping on, because this, you do get better with time. I promise you, it really does improve if you're just starting out. And I will tell you, too, that there's some days I come and sit down at my machine and I can't seem to do one thing right. So it's not just beginners who have days of struggle, it's all of us. Okay, so here is the last of my 8 rotations. As you get a little better, you can choose to speed up the speed of your needle. But remember, when you speed up your needle, you also need to speed up the hand movement. This is a dance that they are playing together, that needle and that fabric, along with the template. There we go. Now I'm going to put my needle down. I'm going to take my gate out, and I am going to show you how awesome is that 8-point Spin Effects number 4. Pretty awesome. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. If you're good at free motion, you could come in here and do some lines just to develop it more as a flower, or whichever you prefer. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue and do the 16 points, okay? And I'm going to not make you sit and watch me, because that's pretty boring. It's kind of like watching paint dry. And I'll come back here just as soon as I have those points ready. Okay, so we're back, and I have put an additional 8 points in. And when I did that, I did again from side to side, side to side, side to side, to keep that draw in on the same plane. And what that does is it cuts down on the amount of waviness. We're going to get a certain amount of waviness from our blocks being pulled in from our stitching, but if we do it that way, it just seems to help cut that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this block like the other ones. I'm going to cut them down. I am going to use my colored pencils, and I'm going to color them in and put them together like a stained glass block quilt. Now, one thing I really haven't said a whole lot about is my reference lines. I have several different ways that I draw in my reference lines. And one of them I cannot find. Oh, there it is. One of them is using a chalk liner. This is just a clover chalk liner. And you'll see how much I use it because it's all marked up and stuff. I purchased this, I take it home, and I dump out the powder, okay? And then I replace it with the Ultimate Pounce powder, which is heat sensitive. And what that means is it comes off with the heat, as do the friction pens and fine liners, and I use those also. So what I need to do when I'm using these 3 methods is I need to remember that occasionally our fabric may end up with what we call a ghost shadow on the fabric when we use heat to erase those lines. If it does, well, first off, what I like to do is use about 3 layers of best press on there, iron it in, let it dry, do that 3 times, and it actually creates a barrier between the fabric and the pen, making it easier to come off. However, that doesn't always work, and you still may end up with a ghost shadow. Now, what some instructors have said, I haven't tried it myself, but I believe people when they say things are going to work, because we want to give you the most accurate information possible. So other instructors have said they spray the best press on it and iron it again, and the best press does help take that ghost shadow out. I do know also that washing it or spritzing it with water will take it out. Some of the other things that we have is chalk pencils. And these are just a couple different forms. These are just compressed chalk. And what I use is just a regular white eraser to erase them off. Obviously, these are choices you want to use on darker fabrics. So just a little bit on those. And now that we have our 16-point rotation of our Spin Effects number 4, I certainly hope that you'll feel more comfortable about it and you'll use it. And until we meet again, or next time we're doing our Spin Effects 5, let's quilt.